Howard County, Maryland, Black Presence, 1800s to 1984. Compiled by the Howard County branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Funded in 1984 by the Maryland Heritage Committee, Howard County NAACP, and Howard Community College during the 350th birthday of Maryland and the 75th anniversary of the NAACP. Nicknamed the Old Line State during the Revolutionary War, Maryland became the 7th state in 1788 during the lifetime of Benjamin Banneker of Baltimore County. He was a free man of color, an astronomer, mathematician, surveyor, and scientist. Because of the proximity of his home in Oella to Howard County, the presence of this black brother is respectfully acknowledged. He was a lifelong Maryland resident from 1731 to 1806. When Howard District of Anne Arundel County became Howard County in 1851, Sarah Brooks was 42 years old, having been born into slavery in 1809 somewhere in or near Howard District. She died in 1913 at the age of 104. Her great-granddaughter and needle threader, 84-year-old Blanche Montague, displays a quilt made by Sarah Brooks. All black persons in Howard County were not slaves. A tally of those who were in bondage and slave owners was still being maintained in the county in 1868, 4 years after the slaves in Maryland were freed by the state legislature. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 did not end slavery in the Old Line State because Maryland had not seceded from the Union. Many black families in the county today bear the surnames of these slaves. Still intact and considered an authentic slave quarter is this 2-unit building at the Blandair Mansion, one of the county's oldest homes. The slave quarter was probably built in the mid-1840s. Many slaves were deeded land to clear when they were freed, both during and after slavery. Family life included homes, kinfolk, occupations, fashions, transportation, and recreation. This log house was home to several generations of a slave with the surname of Snell. His 85-year-old great-grandson Earl Levi still lives in the property that also holds the family cemetery. Albert France and Sister Eva live in the house built for their great-grandmother Sarah Powell Dorsey when she was set free in 1850. Trinity Episcopal Church was the site of the 1879 wedding of William Williams and Julia Rollins. Thousands of people never saw a picture of themselves all their lives, but not this little one, born in 1890, Mary Ellen Mars. Grew into this lovely miss. Old photos show the style of dress worn over the years, such as this velvet multi-button jacket of Eliza Dorsey, who was born in 1864. And the billow sleeve dress of Nina Cager. And if you were Nina's son Walter, this was your Sunday go-to-meeting outfit. No less in high style were siblings William and Ernestine Rollins. The future governor, Edwin Warfield, welcomes the old servants of Warfield Estate to their homecoming in 1902. One of the old Warfield servants at the 1902 homecoming was Henson Dorsey, appearing here with his wife, Alice. Their son Channing, born in 1872, can hardly wait to get into longer pants. As a grown man, Channing Dorsey stands proudly in his Oddfellows regalia around 1895. The rock quarry at Cattail River in Daisy was steady employment for black and white men before 1900 with the erection of government buildings in Washington, D.C. The county black population was 25.3% in 1890. Channing Dorsey worked the rock quarry and is the fifth gentleman from the right. Another employment opportunity was the sawmill in Daisy, where Dorsey Myers worked at age 12. Mr. Myers, age 95, recalls going to work at age 6, drying dishes and never going to school because his 10 cents a day salary was needed to support the family. Lydia Payne was a cook who expressed beauty, pride, strength, and resilience to whatever came her way. The life of this young man was ended when a newfangled electric wire he thought was dead wasn't. Not everyone knows where or who they came from, but one person who knows is Laura Sims, whose family Bible and family pictures identify grandmother Ella and grandfather Alexander Mars, half Irish and half Indian. Mother Martha Mars Hawkins and Laura in 1917, and Mrs. Sims today, whose family records go back to her maternal great-grandparents around 1830. Birth and death dates for immediate and extended family members have been carefully recorded through the generations. Pictures connect us with the past, reminding us where we've been. Here are Lucy and Roy Thompson, and Emma Fields, who lost an eye in childhood, and Mrs. Fields' son, Robert, dressed in his polished high-button shoes. 1886 was the birth year for Louise Dorsey of Jonestown, who at 98 years old is the oldest black native Howard Countyan identified in 1984. Her mother and grandmother were also born in Howard County and were not slaves, but her great-grandparents were sold out of the area and never seen again. Ella Holland Myers was a faith healer and midwife. This happy baby represents thousands of infants of all colors assisted into the world by a midwife with or without a physician present. Luther Williams and his parents are dressed for Emancipation Day around 1910 when Luther was 8. A horse and buggy was transportation to the annual all-day celebration in Laurel. Mr. Williams today enjoys flower and vegetable gardening and canning. 94-year-old Ella Wise Butler's maternal grandmother was a slave in Howard County. Her paternal grandmother was an Indian. Mrs. Butler recalls an old Indian healing woman named Rebecca, whose life as a young woman had been spared when the community doctor told white men killing Indians for the sport that neither the Indian nor her children were to be harmed in any way because she was a healer. One form of entertainment was the brass band, which played at large picnics, baseball games, and Emancipation Day. After the holiday, it was back to the fields behind the horse for Augustus Gaither. Farms in the county provided jobs for most men at some time in their lives, including John Carroll on the right. Charles Harding rides one of the horses pulling a hay wagon. The loaded hay wagon was weighed at hay scales, the name given the intersection of Route 32 and Guilford Road, where the underground weigh scale was located. Cousins Mary Carroll Chase and Ruth DeShields spent an afternoon together in the early 1900s. A Saturday night special used to be a tub bath with one child after another in the same water. Water source was from a pump or a spring, as this one, which is still running. or this covered well still used exclusively for the family's water source. Leolia Gaither still uses a stove that has one side for cooking with wood and the other side for cooking with electric. Beulah Cook still holds on to her wood stove. A separate summer kitchen was a fire safety precaution that kept the main house from getting overheated from the summer heat. Before refrigeration, hog-killing time in the cold late fall supplied the only source of fresh pork and sausage, liver pudding, and souse, plus a year's supply of lard. After several weeks in a salt barrel, the pork was smoked in a smokehouse, like this one belonging to Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Rustin. The horseless carriage in the early 1900s was dangerous to crank, as Isaiah and Dina Harriday could attest to. The coupe in this 1928 photo of Cosette Carroll Harding may travel over the county dirt roads less dusty than with a horse and buggy. Three buddies enjoy this stationary car at an amusement park. These girls were dressed up for a July 4th picnic where there was sure to be homemade ice cream and sparklers. Family life continued to be the backbone of strength of black families. The Remus Dorsey family show what the best-dressed family wore in the early 1940s. Dress for a wedding? No. Dress for a fashion show? Yes. The days when every child in a neighborhood grew up under the wisdom and guidance of somebody's grandfather, like George Carter, are past. So is the $18 charge for burial from an Ellicott City funeral parlor on Main Street in 1918. And the simplicity of writing a permit on the back of a calling card to allow a neighbor to run electric lines over your property. Reverend Green was a pastor at Gaines Methodist Church in Elkridge in the early 1900s. Land for the church was sold to the black community for $1 in 1866. This building is the second one on the site after the first one burned down. Community life over the years has evolved around church, military, school, and civic responsibilities. These church members at Gaines were symbolic of strong community support at each of the county's 18 or so black churches active before 1920. These Daisy Church members posed before 1913 when the log cabin school was torn down. The gentleman on the right is Henson Dorsey, whom we met earlier at the 1902 Old Servants' Homecoming at Warfield. Reverend Charles Jackson was the second pastor at First Baptist Church of Guilford from around 1908 until 1951. Dora Mack Carter was piano teacher, grocer, and church worker whose strict dress code in her grocery store set the standard for the entire community. Children's Day with all children in white was one of Mrs. Carter's projects. A new building and location for the Unity Baptist Church in Elkridge became necessary after this one was hit by Hurricane Agnes in 1972 and Hurricane Eloise in 1975. In the 1970s, members gathered at the old St. Luke's Methodist Church in Ellicott City, founded in 1889, and marched to the current site on top of a hill on Main Street, Ellicott City. Every church had a Sunday school, including Asbury Methodist. The May Queen rally at Asbury was a big recreational day. And what became of the Number That John Saw Club, organized by Reverend Alene Moore? Black participation in all wars is evident by tombstones throughout the county, marking sacrifices made from the Civil War through Vietnam. Born in 1896, Willie Mars served in World War I, while a sailor's life beckoned John Henry Thomas in World War I, and William Matthews in World War II, who came home to his sweetheart, Sarah Rollins Matthews, another lifelong resident. Schooling for colored people of African descent was provided for at the Warfield Academy, founded in 1846. The length of its existence is not known. Grades 1 through 7 were at each public black school, including this Elkridge School, around 1892. Bessie Snell taught school in the early 1900s. In these early scenes of Elkridge and in black schools all over the county, more girls attended school and for more days than did boys, because as they grew older and larger, boys had to work the fields in spring and fall. A young woman from Howard County is on this Hampton University campus around 1900 at Hampton, Virginia. There was no little red schoolhouse for these Daisy students of Miss Brown. The log one-room building was used for both school and worship on Sundays before the Daisy Methodist Church was built next to it. A younger Henson Dorsey appears as a school trustee and dates the picture before 1900. By 1914, the student body and schoolhouse were larger. Most teachers are remembered as being strict and fair disciplinarians, as was Alice Green, shown with students at the Old Guilford School in the early 1900s. Retired teacher Mildred Williams touched the lives of 4 generations of county students. Graduation from the 7th grade at all county black schools marked the end of public education for black students. Many students did continue their education in Baltimore City and College Park and other nearby areas, using an assumed address if parents could afford tuition and transportation. 1944 brought educator Silas Craft to Cooksville School to face potbelly stoves and outhouses as well as indecent housing for blacks. Elhart Flurry joined Mr. Craft, as did Morris Woodson, shown with Mrs. Woodson, in leading a county-wide parental effort for better facilities and learning materials. Mrs. Woodson's community involvement included scouting, recreation, and wedding coordinating. The 1948 dedication service for Harriet Tubman High School came after months and months of intense county-wide parental pressure on the school board. The testimony of a wealthy white woman was the catalyst that speeded the school board to a decision. The new high school opened in 1949. In 16 years of its existence, the name Tubman was never put on the building. As a shrine to her let it be, as our hearts entwine in loyalty. We love to dream of you, Harriet Tubman. You're the model of a school. The Alpha Pi Honor Society was a reward for serious study. Strong, active participation by mothers and fathers kept the county-wide school community cohesive, congenial, and productive. The county-wide PTA's assistance to elementary school and Tubman included funding library books, band instruments, and uniforms for the band and choir and the elementary school dental program. The Tubman Baby Rally was one fundraiser and an annual event. Parental involvement was dependable in elementary schools as well. Graduation at Tubman was a standing room only affair each year, with the last class graduating in 1965. It was like tearing out our heart when Tubman closed. After desegregation, Tubman was never integrated. It was used for other purposes by the school system. Life goes on, and yesterday's youngster has become today's college graduate, as has Tubman alumna Janice Matthews Collier, the great-granddaughter of a Howard County slave named Sophia Rollins. Now all students take new textbooks for granted, as these students at Owen Brown Middle School. Pressing for an end to segregation kept the NAACP in Annapolis during the 50s and 60s. Before the passage of civil rights laws, the communications between black and white citizens was minimal at best. The Howard County Interracial Commission and other groups made efforts to improve race relations. NAACP members Carrie Johnson and Reverend John Holland receive awards for service to the local branch from Dr. Silas Kraft and Dr. Benjamin Hooks. The passage of civil rights laws has not lessened the need for a watchman, and for this cause, Reverend John L. Wright, as president, leads the county NAACP with continued support from black and white citizens, pulling together as Naomi Carter and Anita Iribe. Here is a sampling of over 125 county citizens who offered information and photographs for the 1984 Howard County Black History Project.
All of this land in you, all the way back to cross number 1, all the way back, this it was slave ground.
Christmas was the happiest time. We had a old cook stove with a line across the stove. I guess the mother would hang clothes, I guess they had to thaw out or whatnot. We'd hang our stockings up for Santa Claus. Old stockings up with great big holes in them. Mornings we'd come down for Christmas and nuts and candy would be all over the stove that fell through the holes. Every child would get nuts, candy, orange in their stocking and a toy. Them old people could pray and sing and pray and clap.
It got to the point where the houses were so bad in Howard County that if a black moved out, but the only thing they would do was push it over.
But we survived, and you changed with the changes.
The 1980 census lists 13,899 blacks in the county at 11.7% of the population. To the county executive and county council members, we say, we're still here, going nowhere, staying right here, working to keep the county a good place for us all. This is home, Howard County, Maryland.